Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GSMC Pet Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your brave and handsome host, Taylor Cowan. Welcome back to the show, friends. Just got back from a little trip to Idaho. I took my dog with me. Great trip, great time for the dog. He got to spend a lot of time with another dog named Rockwell, and they just had a good old time. My dog's not very, I don't know, my dog doesn't get how to play, I don't think. Like, he plays, but I feel like he bothers other dogs. He's always nipping at their ankles and trying to push them over, even when they're obviously not into it. He doesn't have very good social skills. But he's a great dog. He would never hurt another dog. But, I don't know, he's just that obnoxious friend who is always calling and wakes you up while you're sleeping and tries to hump you. But we get back from our trip from Idaho, and I was doing a little examination, and I found a tick. Yes, a monstrous tick. Luckily, it hadn't reached skin yet. It was just in his fur, crawling about. He's got a big, thick coat, so I think it's a little harder for him to get ticks. In fact, when we showed up in Idaho, their dog, Rockwell, had a tick already in his ear. We had to remove it with a hot knife. That's what you do, folks. You don't want the head to get stuck in the body, because it'll get, the ticks have all sorts of diseases, like Lyme disease, which is a terrible affliction. So yeah, I found this tick on my dog, and now I don't know what to do. So we're doing some live study today on ticks. We might talk a little bit about cat acne again later on, because I had to clean my cat's acne off today, and it seems like it's getting worse. And I don't know what to do. I really don't want to take her to the vet for this. I don't think it's necessary, and from what I've been reading, it's fairly common for cats 2 to 4 years of age, which she is. It's like their teenage years, so they get acne, like any teenager. But let's talk about ticks first. I was combing through his hair, found this tick. Who knows? There could be another one in there. I'm going to brush him after this episode ends. I'm going to give him a nice long brushing, but I'm a little concerned. I am a wee bit concerned about his ticks. Because what if there's one that's deep in his fur? I'll never find it until it's this big mole-like thing. And they're gross, man. They're scary. I've never really seen a tick before. I'm sure I have at some point. I've seen them in pictures, but live up close. In all my 27 years of life, I've never noticed a tick, and it basically looks like a miniature round, kind of like a beetle. It's got like those clasping teeth. So let's look into some tick facts. All right, ticks are scientifically classified as arachnida, so same as spiders. So that makes it extra disgusting. The fossil record suggests ticks have been around at least 90 million years. I don't know how they ever would find a tick fossil, unless there was some hellish time in history when giant monstrous ticks roamed the earth like dinosaurs, just eating triceratops in one big clamp of their jaws. So yeah, 90 million years, that's a long time. Ticks have had a lot of time to develop, still can't fight off Lyme disease. Most tick bites do not transmit harmful microbes. Well, that's good. That's good news for me. There are, however, a variety of tick-borne diseases. There's a wide range of symptoms that usually develop days to weeks after the tick bite. The symptoms depend on the particular microbe that is transmitted. For all tick bites, local cleansing and antibiotic cream may be applied. There are safe and effective methods for removal of all types of tick. Okay. So let's talk about what ticks look like here in more detail. It kind of looks like, from this picture I'm looking at, it looks like a raisin with legs. Ticks are small arachnids. Ticks require blood meals to complete their complex life cycles. Ticks are scientifically classified as arachnida, blah, 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 fossil record, 90 million years, blah, blah, I already read that. There are over 800 species of ticks throughout the world, but only 2 families of ticks, hard ticks and soft ticks, are known to transmit diseases or illnesses to humans. Hard ticks have a scutum or hard plate on their back, while soft ticks do not. Tick-borne diseases occur worldwide. I don't know if you've ever met someone with Lyme disease or heard much about Lyme disease, but it sucks. It sucks. I know it's a common tick thing, but I don't know. You're just tired all the time, I guess, and if you let it go too long untreated, it's really, really bad. Let's see what else we got here. Ticks have a complex life cycle that includes eggs, larvae, nymphs, and adult male and female ticks. The larvae, nymphs, also termed seed ticks, and adults all need blood meals. Usually, the female adult, the hard tick, is the one causing the most bites, as males usually die after mating. Ticks do not jump, fly, or drop. They simply reach out with their legs and grab or crawl onto a host. Ugh. Gross. Although some larvae have have preferred hosts, most ticks in the nymph or adult phase will get a blood meal from several different kinds of animals, including humans. Except for a few species of larval ticks, the immature phases, the larval nymphs, usually are even less selective about where they get a blood meal and are known to bite snakes, amphibians, birds, and mammals. Larvae are very small, about 1/32 of an inch with 6 legs, while nymphs are about 1/6 to 1/8 of an inch with 8 legs, and adults about 3/16 to 1/4 inch with 8 legs. Just a horrible, horrible creature. I don't see what purpose they serve on this planet, to be quite frank with you. I think they could be eliminated. I think they could go the way of the dodo and no one would know the difference and everyone would be happy. I guess birds maybe eat them. Maybe the birds would be disappointed. But, there's lots of things for you to eat birds. There's plenty of worms and ants out there. The complex life cycles described in the last web citation below, and all this web citations including pictures of various tick species. Okay, that was not applicable. Although ticks will die eventually if they do not get a blood meal, many species can survive a year or more without a blood meal. That's so gross. Why do they call it blood meal? Just say a meal. I get it. The hard ticks tend to attach and feed for hours to days. Disease transmission usually occurs near the end of a meal as the tick becomes full of blood. As the tick becomes full of blood, that doesn't even make any sense. So it just gets so full it can't even keep the diseases in anymore. It may take hours before a hard tick transmits pathogens. Soft ticks usually feed for less than 1 hour. Disease transmission can occur in less than a minute with soft ticks. The bite of some of these soft ticks produces intensely painful reactions. This is horrifying. Geez, time flies so much when I'm just talking to you, pet podcast listeners. We got more ticks coming up here. Lots more tick facts to talk about. Stick around. I will talk to you in just a moment.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back, folks. It is TikTok Day, not TikTok, the app used by many of the younger generation that I don't get. I've tried to use it at, maybe I'm getting too old. 27 is probably too old to be using an app like TikTok. But no, we're actually talking about ticks as a slightly different distinction here. Where were we? This is a good place to start. So ticks are transmitters, parentheses, vectors of diseases for humans and animals. Ticks can transmit diseases to many hosts. Some cause economic harm, such as Texas fever in cattle that can kill up to 90% of yearling cows. Wow. How do you avoid that? Ticks act as vectors when microbes in their saliva and mouth secretions get into the host's skin and blood. Ticks were understood to be vectors of disease in the mid-1800s, and as investigative methods improved, microscopes, culture techniques, tissue staining, more information showed the wide variety of diseases that could be transmitted by ticks. See, this is just too much. First, I got to worry about COVID. Now I got to worry about ticks. I'm checking my whole body now for ticks. What if there's one where, if my dog had one on him, there could be a million hidden under his fur. I just shave him completely. There are many common names for various ticks: dog tick, deer tick, African tick, and these names appear in the scientific literature too. Most common names represent a genus of ticks. However, the common name red may be used by people to describe almost any tick that has had a blood meal, engorged with blood. Disgusting. I don't get the blood meal. There doesn't seem to be that much nutrients in blood. Could I survive off a blood meal? If I, if I just ate blood and water, ugh, gives me the chills just thinking about drinking blood. It's so salty. What are the risk factors for tick bites? People who go through grassy areas and woods are at higher risk for tick bites, especially during the months from April through September. People who travel through such areas out of necessity or for recreation are at higher risk than those that protect themselves with appropriate clothing, like long-sleeve shirts, long pants, and DEET containing repellents. Classic DEET, baby. DEET is saving the world from malaria and ticks. In addition, people who have pets treated with the flea and tick repellents decrease their risk of tick bites. People who live in areas surrounded by tall, grassy areas of woods have a higher risk for tick bites, but the prevention section below describes ways to reduce risks. Well, so this is a fun episode because this is applicable to you and your dog. Unfortunately, for the purpose of detection, the tick bite is usually painless and remains that way even after the tick stops the blood meal and falls off. Oh, the tick stops the blood meal and falls off of the skin. Later, the bite site might develop itching, burning, redness or red spot, and rarely localized intense pain like in the joints. Some soft ticks bite in some individuals. They bite your joints? How do they get that deep? I feel like I don't know. And if you're allergic, you might get a rash, shortness of breath, swelling, numbness, or paralysis. Wow. However, the majority of individuals with tick bites develop no symptoms, and many people do not remember getting bitten. So immediate symptoms that infrequently or rarely develop during or immediately after a tick bite initially may be flu-like and include fever, shortness of breath, weakness and or achiness, vomiting, swelling at the bite site and or lymph nodes, weakness or paralysis, headache, confusion, or palpitations. Sounds like crap. If you ask me, it all sounds like it's awful. Let's get more into what dogs... Well, first we'll talk about the diseases that ticks can pass on to you. Tularemia. This is the American dog tick. It doesn't really tell us much about what happens on these websites. We got anaplasmosis, Colorado tick fever, Powassan anaphylaxis. I know I pronounced that wrong. Babesiosis. That sounds awesome. I want babesiosis. Ehrlichiosis, boring. Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I've heard of that one. Lyme disease. This one I think is maybe the more common one. This is the one I always hear about is Lyme disease. And ticks, they're all horrible looking. They all look like monsters, 8-legged monsters. Oh, so those claws I was talking about aren't actually, like the clampers I was talking about, aren't actually clampers. They're actually their front arms. Jeez, these things are horrible. These are just horrible. Let's look at some tick prevention for your dogs. So obviously you can get the, what are they called? The collars, which I should have gotten before we went. But if you don't have a collar, there is spot control, which are medications you place on your dog, usually between the shoulder blades and the running of the tail. Shampoos. You can bathe your dog with medicated flea and tick shampoos to prevent and kill pests. Collars. Collars provide long-term medication to prevent and kill fleas and ticks. There's chews, chewable flea and tick medication. Kind of like Heartgard or something. Sprays and wipes. Fleas and tick sprays and wipes can provide short-term solutions to controlling the pests, and home treatment in case they have invaded your home, which sounds like the worst thing that could ever happen to anyone. A tick infestation in your home. You wake up and you're just covered with little tick tumors. Ugh. Let's see. Let's look up some more ways to avoid the dogs. Tick dips. Oh, a dip is a concentrated chemical that needs to be diluted in water and applied to the animal's fur with sponge or poured over the back. Meant to be rinsed off application. So yeah, that seems like the best way. Especially like if you're like me and, you're not going to be out in this place for a long amount of time. Like I don't want to buy a tick collar. I didn't even think about it before I left, but I don't want to buy a whole tick collar if it's going to get used once. Because my backyard is tick-free. I can promise you that. If there's any ticks in my yard, there's going to be a problem. So, yeah, then you just pour it on their back, and they're good for the day. That sounds great. And then as far as removing it goes, the hot knife method is the best way I've found. Heat up the end of a knife, tip of a knife, and you just get it close enough to the tick that the tick will let go, and it's free. And you want to make sure, once it's on the floor, you stomp it out pretty dang good. But, yeah, you got to make sure you want to get the head out. That's why you do the hot knife method, if you didn't know already. If you just pull it out, its head breaks off. And then its head stays inside your dog, and then it still can pass on Lyme disease and all those other diseases we read about, Rocky Mountain tick fever or whatever. And then if you get a tick, I feel sorry for you. That's all I have to say about that. We're going to take another break here. When we get back, we'll talk a little more about some other pests you might have to worry about. I got a little bit more to say about ticks, horrible monsters of the brush. But, we'll talk in just a moment.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
We are talking ticks still. I'll give you the breakdown on how to really remove these things, not just the hot knife method. So step number 1, wear some gloves. I know we all got gloves laying around now. Plenty, use them for ticks too. They're double use now. Wear hand protection such as gloves so you don't spread pathogens from the tick to your hands. Disgusting little creatures. Use a fine-tipped forceps or tweezers to grab the tick at skin level. You might want 2 people to do this. If you're pulling a tick out of your dog, if it's just you, if you're pulling a tick out of yourself, that's one thing. But your dog's going to, roll around, and it's not going to like the tick removal process. I guarantee it. Grasp the tick firmly with the tweezers as close to the skin as possible without crushing the tick. Apply gentle pulling motion upward until the tick comes free. Twisting or turning the tick does not make removal easier because the mouth parts are barbed. In fact, such actions may break off the head and mouth parts, thereby increasing the chance for infection. The second web citation illustrates the proper removal of a tick. Okay, so this one is not even recommending the hot knife method. I like the hot knife method. But maybe this is better for the dog. But, that's the thing. You get the hot knife close, it's just going to pop right out. Whereas this method that the internet's telling us to do right now, if your dog moves a little bit, it's going to rip its head off, and then, there's not much you can do. And skin will eventually push it out. Once the tick is removed, don't crush the tick because it may release pathogens. Jeez, these are just full of pathogens. Consider keeping it in a tightly closed jar or taped to a piece of paper. Show the tick to the doctor if the person bitten becomes ill after the tick bite. Flush any removed ticks not kept for identification down the toilet or sink. So I guess hang on to it like it's your little friend. Welcome to the Pet Podcast, folks. Today's pet recommendation is a tick. Keep it in a jar. Put in a blood meal for it every other week. The area of the bite should leave a small crater or indentation where the head and mouth parts were embedded. If portions of the head or mouth parts remain, they may be removed by a doctor. So, that's good. Thoroughly cleanse the bite area with soap and water or a mild disinfectant. Observe the area for several days for development of a reaction to the bite, rash, or signs of infection. Apply antibiotic cream to the area as a precaution. Application of an antibiotic to the area may help prevent a local infection, but usually does not affect the chance of developing diseases transmitted by the tick. So, you got the disease. Sorry. Wash hands thoroughly after handling any tick or instruments that were touched by the tick. Now, to remove a tick without tweezers. We can't all afford tweezers. Come on. Times are tough. This is the COVID age. This is what you do without tweezers. Find the tick on the skin with your finger, preferably gloved. Rotate the body of the tick clockwise or counterclockwise for about a minute or so. This irritates the tick enough to cause it to let go of the skin, and then the tick can be removed by simply touching the tick to Scotch tape. I don't get how the turning it clockwise or counterclockwise is going to work. It just spins around in a circle. I thought its head will get torn off, was my understanding. Otherwise, you can put liquid soap on a cotton ball and cover the tick with the soap cotton ball for about 15 to 20 seconds. The tick will supposedly release itself from the skin and get caught up in the cotton ball. You can dispose of the tick by placing it in the cotton ball in a sealable plastic bag. All right, so apparently the hot knife method is not... Oh, here we go. This article does say something about the hot method. Let's read it. Let's finish reading the rest of this article because I might be about to get disproved. These other ways to remove ticks, such as using a hot match head or painting the tick with nail polish, gasoline, or other materials, are not advised. Such treatments can cause the tick to release more fluids back into the bite and increase the chance to transmit disease before the tick releases itself from the skin. Really? The hot match method is no good? I find that hard to believe. to be quite frank with you. Now, you know, I would trust medicinenet.com more, I suppose, but I don't know. I feel like the hot match method is the method. But I guess I'm incorrect, folks. So there goes my advice. There goes my credibility. No, I think it's fine. You got to do what you got to do. You know, if you find that the hot knife method works for you, do it. I can't imagine it's going to release that more pathogens, that much more, than just a regular twisting it out with the tweezers. If you're twisting out with the tweezers, it's already pretty irate, presumably. It's already saying, let's release as much pathogens as we possibly can. But I don't know. Anyways, you know, check your dog for ticks often, because you don't want to deal with a dog with some disease, Lyme disease or whatever. No one wants to deal with that. That's terrible and awful. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And if you got a tick, find it. They are hard to find. However, I will say that I had a difficult time finding my tick in my pet. And there's probably another one in there somewhere. That's what concerns me. I might have got a really long-haired dog. And I got lucky that I just was combing through his hair and this one popped out. But it's hard for me to imagine that was the only one that made it on. I don't know how common ticks are roaming about, but one seems like a minimal amount. When we get back, my friends, we are going to speak of some other pests, some other, what would you call them, parasites that you might have to worry about if you are out in the forest. You might need to examine your dog for. Talk to you in a bit.
Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Hello, friends, we're back. Hope you enjoyed the break. Got a coffee, did what you got to do. It's a short break. You probably didn't have time to get a coffee, or you maybe had time to walk to the fridge and grab a Diet Cherry Shasta or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what you got time to do. Maybe you paused and went to work for 8 hours and came back. We are talking about ticks. We're having a deep emotional conversation about ticks and the tick I found on my dog, the horrible monster of the outer world, of the wilderness, really. Tall grass is where you're going to be worried about ticks. You went and walk through some tall grass, run through some tall grass, you better watch out, because there's a tick in your future. And you can get ticks too, so make sure you kill it if you pull it off your dog. There's some other types of parasites, though, that you got to worry about too, especially with dogs. And these ones are hidden beneath the skin in the intestinal tract and the stomach and the throat and the heart. So let's start with the roundworm. Roundworm, disgusting creature, Kind of looks like a sperm cell with a giant toothed hole on the front that is horrifying. Now, roundworms are the most common intestinal parasites in dogs. They are especially common in puppies. Adult roundworms live in the intestinal tracts of their hosts, consuming the host's food. The adult roundworm is round, white to light brown in color, and several inches long. These worms look a lot like spaghetti or angel hair pasta. Adult dogs get roundworms from ingesting roundworm larvae, usually found in contaminated soil or infected prey, such as a mouse or other small animals. This is why you don't, when you find your dog chewing on an old dead bird or something, which that's what always concerns me when I find something like that. I'm like, there's no way you killed that bird. My dog's not competent enough to hunt down a bird. They found it dead already. It's very disturbing. My cats, however, are also, they can get roundworms too. They could easily take down a bird, so watch out. Or a mouse or something. Because this is saying other small mammal. Do roundworms only live in mammals? Can they not do birds? Birds don't have the same insides? I don't know. Puppies are born with roundworms after contracting them from their mother's uterus during gestation. In addition, nursing puppies may ingest roundworm larvae in their mother's milk. What? Does that mean the mother had roundworms already? So that's just a whole roundworm family. You got to take care of your dogs more than that. Take care of mama. Once ingested, larvae makes their way into the dog's liver. While developing into adult worms, they travel to the lungs, are coughed up by the dog, and then swallowed. That's disgusting. The adult roundworms live in the dog's intestines. Their eggs are shed in the dog's stool and develop into larvae. The life cycle is repeated when another host ingests the larva. Wow, this is just a horrible, horrible process. Here's the signs. Signs of roundworm infection include diarrhea, vomiting, pot-bellied appearance, coughing. Dogs may cough up or vomit worms. This is so gross. Weight loss and dull hair coat. Many dogs will show no signs of infection at first. So that's after if they're vomiting up worms, I presume they've had it for quite a while. Humans can contract roundworms through contact with a contaminated soil, potentially leading to a serious condition called visceral larva migrans. Migrans? There's no way that's supposed to say migraines. Always wear gloves when handling any soil, especially that which may have come in contact with dog feces. Children are especially high risk. Do roundworms work for weight loss? Could that be some sort of, hip new fad roundworm? Roundworm weight loss, the roundworm diet, and you just swallow a big roundworm and eat your food. Or is that the tapeworm? I don't want to be throwing up worms. Anyways, let's move on to innard parasite number 2, the hookworm. Hookworms are another common type of intestinal parasite affecting dogs and puppies. The hookworm attaches itself to the intestinal mucosa of its host with its sharp teeth and sucks the host's blood for sustenance. Hookworms are significantly smaller than roundworms and usually not seen in stool or vomit. Adult dogs get hookworms from contact with contaminated soil. It seems like very similar to roundworms in that respect. The larva can also burrow through the skin or pod pads when a dog is lying on the ground. Or the dog can ingest the larva after contact with contaminated soil. Again, mother's milk, yes, still. Many hookworm larvae develop into adult worms in the small intestine, but some travel to the lungs or coughed up by the dog and then swallowed, similar to roundworms. Basically, that's all seems the same. They get into your body the same way roundworms get into your body, but these ones hook in with their gross. These ones look like little snakes, little internal snakes, if you haven't ever seen a picture. Signs of hookworm infection include pale mucous membranes and weakness due to anemia. Some animals have diarrhea and or weight loss. Okay, so there we go. You want weight loss, you use the hookworm. I'm going to start that, the hookworm treatment, and it's going to change the world. The new Weight Watchers, it's just going to be swallowing hookworms. Many dogs show no sign of infection at first. Be aware that hookworm infection can be very dangerous to young puppies due to the amount of blood loss that can occur. Yes. And then there's ways to treat it. If your dog gets it, you can look up the treatment yourself. I'm not going to have time to get into all of that for each of these. Humans can get hookworms through contact with contaminated soil. Hookworm larvae can penetrate the skin, potentially leading to a relatively minor but rather uncomfortable condition called cutaneous larva migrans. Migrans? I'm going to say that says migrans. Cutaneous larva migrans. You never want any disease that has the word larva in it. You know what I mean? It's so gross to think about little larvas just crawling around in you. Avoid walking barefoot in areas where pets may have once defecated, including beaches. Always wear gloves when handling any soil, especially that which may have come in contact with dog feces. Children should never play or sit in areas where pets may have once defecated. Well, that's kind of tough to manage, isn't it? If you got a backyard, how are you supposed to monitor that? That's basically you can't walk anywhere where an animal may have once defecated. How about this? Wear your shoes to the dog park. Easy as that. I have to go back and redo my dog park episode about dog park etiquette and not wearing your shoes at the dog park. If you're not wearing your shoes at the dog park, you've got probably more than just hookworms. You got all sorts of stuff going on. Wear your shoes at the dog park. And then same like beaches, come on. No one wears their shoes at the beach. So, if you get a hookworm, you get a hookworm. There's ways to take care of it. Don't worry too much about it. But you don't want your dog to get a hookworm because you probably won't notice until it's a problem. Like the signs, the diarrhea, I would maybe notice. Weight loss, definitely would notice. But those are not the most common symptoms. Pale mucous membranes, I would maybe not notice if my dog's mucous membranes were looking more pale. However, my dog does just stand around with his mouth hanging open all day and his tongue out. So, on second thought, I might notice. I might notice pretty quickly. Why aren't you slobbering as much? Why isn't there a puddle of water beneath your feet from your tongue hanging loosely from your mouth? Folks, when we get back, I got a few more common parasites. Oh, just two more, looks like. Two more common parasites to watch out for your dog. And after that, we'll get into the end game, folks. We'll talk about a little bit more about my cat's acne. How about that excitement? Talk to you in a second.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Are back, my friend. It's been a long parasitic episode. I got a bloody nose during the break. It's very dry where I live. I get bloody noses when I get dry. And this might be too TMI, but I've got a tissue in my nose right now. So if I sound a little nasalier than the previous segments, you'll know why. There we go. Went over roundworms and hookworms. very common. The next on our list is the whipworm. This is one I've never heard of. Whipworms are another common intestinal parasite in dogs. The whipworm lives in a large intestine where it bites the tissue and embeds its head inside. Like the hookworm, the whipworm sucks the host's blood for sustenance. Whipworms are even smaller than roundworms and rarely seen in the stool. One end of the worm's body is wide while the rest tapers off to a narrow whip-like head, hence the name whipworm. Dogs get whipworms from ingesting whipworm eggs that live in the soil. This typically happens through self-grooming. The whipworm eggs pass through the upper GI tract and hatch into larvae in the small intestine. Yum. Next, the larvae move down to the cecum, or large intestine, where they develop into adult whipworms. Their eggs show up in the dog's stool. Gross. Whipworm eggs can lay dormant in the soil for years until consumed by a new host. Then, the life cycle is repeated. The circle of life begins again for the whipworm. Beautiful. Signs of whipworm infection may not be present at first. Typically, bloody diarrhea will develop as an infection worsens, possibly leading to chronic bloody diarrhea. That is the worst thing I've ever read. Anemia is possible, though not as common with whipworm infections as it is with hookworm infection. Whipworm infection may also become severe enough to cause serious electrolyte imbalance. Give us some Gatorade, baby. You got a serious electrolyte imbalance? I got the solution. It's called Gatorade. Give it a shot. No, that's probably not the best way to treat it. There are plenty of treatworm treatments out there, and they are about the same for roundworms and hookworms as well. So, you think you got any type of worm, go look up the treatment online. Take them to the vet, probably, is the best way to handle it, always. If there's a problem, take them to the vet. Fortunately, the type of whipworm that affects dogs is rarely transmissible to humans. However, precautions should still be taken to prevent contact with dog feces or contaminated soil. And I think that's just a general life advice. If you can avoid dog feces and contaminated soil, that's probably for the best, regardless of what you're doing. I just think that's how it is. One more worm left here on this list. And believe me, there's plenty more parasites that I'm not going to get to today, because I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about parasites. We're already going to have spent, 5/6 of the episode talking about that. Anyways, the final one. We all know of this worm. It is the tapeworm. This one is actually, I think this is probably the best one for weight loss. Anyways, tapeworms are intestinal parasites that commonly affect dogs. They are long, flat worms that attach to a small intestine of their host. A tapeworm body is several inches long but consists of multiple segments that grow onto the head and neck of the worm. Each segment has its own reproductive tract. Oh, that's crazy. So each head can produce a new worm, is what I'm assuming. Dogs get tapeworms from ingesting fleas. Flea larvae hatch from eggs and consume surrounding flea dirt and debris. If present, they will also consume tapeworm eggs. The larval fleas develop into adults as the tapeworm eggs develop inside the fleas. Adult fleas jump onto the host, usually a dog or cat, and cause the pet to itch. The scratch. My dog's whining outside right now. I have to go let him in during the break. The host chews itself and consumes the adult flea, and then the developing tapeworm is released into the host. Wow, this is a lot more complex than the other ones. The other ones just find their way in. The young tapeworm attaches to the small intestine and grows into segments. The end segments are egg sacs, which eventually detach and make their way out of the host's rectum into the environment. The tapeworm segment, which resembles a grain of rice or sesame seed, breaks open and the eggs are released. If flea eggs are also present in the environment, the life cycle is repeated. Therefore, tapeworms are only passed from pet to pet by way of fleas. That's interesting. So you almost need fleas to have tapeworms. That's interesting. Can you hear my dog barking in the background? He's ruining the podcast. Fortunately, it is the Pets podcast, so he can't ruin it because it's about him. Signs of tapeworm are rarely seen in dogs affected by tapeworms, except the appearance of rice-like segments around the anus of the pet or in the stool. Now, I don't know about you. I don't go around examining my dog's anus very often or his stool. I don't go digging through his stool. So I would probably never know. Fortunately, these parasites do not tend to adversely affect dogs. It is generally considered a cosmetic, hygienic concern only. Oh, weird. What are the different relationships of parasites? I forget. There's symbiotic, which is where they work together, like the little fish on the shark's body. There's another two. There's one that are detrimental to the host, and there's one that's just neutral. I forget what the word is. Zoonosis. Zoonosis means, folks, is it transferable to humans? Zoonosis. Fortunately, the type of tapeworm that affects dogs is not directly transmissible to humans. However, tapeworm infection can technically be transmitted to humans by accidental ingestion of fleas. So don't eat fleas. Thought that was obvious. I guess not. There is another type of tapeworm that can affect pets, tinea. This type of infection is less common and contracted after a pet consumes an intermediate host such as a rabbit or mouse. Fortunately, this type of tapeworm does not tend to have an adverse effect on the host. In addition, the same medication that kills Diploidium caninum, it also kills tinea. Geez, that was a lot of word. So one, two types of tapeworms, one eats the other one. Easy as that. Easy as that. And I think there are human tapeworms, but we don't get into that. It's the Pets podcast, not the Human Pet podcast. And there's lots of other parasites you can look into. Heartworm, which is a common one. The vet's going to tell you about heartworm all the time. Make sure to get the heart guard or whatever, because that one's very common. Especially if you take your dog around dogs that haven't been to a vet or gotten vaccinations, I guess. I don't think the heart guard is really a vaccination. It's just the pill that they give you, a little chewy that you have to hide in peanut butter and stick in your dog's mouth. And maybe they'll swallow it. My dogs are always too smart. They always somehow lick around the peanut butter and spit out a unchewed pill. Folks, when we get back, I know I said you're going to talk more about my cat's acne, but there has been a development. I just got word, my friends, that we have murder hornets in the United States. That's right. Murder hornets. We'll be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have some disheartening news, folks. We will not be talking about my cat's acne. I have received word through the mainstream news that murder hornets have officially come to the United States. Yes, lock your doors, close your windows, get a wet towel, put it underneath the door. The murder hornets are here. A roughly 2-inch-long insect known as the murder hornet has made its way to the U.S. for the first time ever, researchers said. The Asian giant hornet, Vespa mandarinia, has been known to kill up to 50 people a year in Japan, according to the New York Times, and has a potential to devastate U.S. bee populations, which have already been declining. Great. Folks, we got to fight back against the murder hornets. Life imprisonment for the murder hornets. Susan Colby, bee breeder with the Washington State University Department of Entomology, told WSU Insider that the hornets are like something out of a monster cartoon with huge yellow-orange face. The hornets are usually between 1.5 to 2 inches long, have large yellow-orange heads with prominent eyes and a black and yellow striped abdomen. My Lord. Please save us all. The hornets made their way to the U.S. for the first time in December when the Washington State Department of Agriculture verified 4 reports of sightings. The hornets were also spotted in 2 locations in British Columbia in the fall. Scientists say the Asian giant hornet's life cycle begins in April. Researchers told WSU that when the queen wakes up from hibernation and scouts out spots to build underground nests and grow colonies. Oh, they're hiding under our feet. But murder hornets become the most dangerous from late summer to early fall when they ravage through honeybee populations. WSO researchers said the hornets attack the beehives, decapitating and killing the adults and eating the larvae and pupa. Just a few of the hornets can completely destroy a hive in a matter of hours. WSDA says on their website that the hornets do not typically go after humans, but if they do, not even beekeeping suits can protect against the hornet stingers, which are longer and more dangerous than a bee's. This is kind of scary. My goodness. Let's see here. Researchers say that the sting of a murder hornet is painful and packed with neurotoxins. Even if someone is not allergic to the hornet, multiple stings have the potential to kill. Conrad Biarube, a beekeeper and entomologist in Nanaimo, British Columbia, told the New York Times that the day after he got stung, his legs ached like he had the flu, and the sting was the most painful sting he's ever experienced. Go look at a picture of one of these things, because it's pretty insane what they look like. They're huge. It's like, I'm looking at a picture of one in a guy's hand, and it's the size of his whole hand. It's across his whole hand. Let's look a little more into these. I'm going to look at some images. My goodness. 2 inches long. Think about that. 2 inches long, and its sting can get through a bee suit, and it just eats other bees. What is the purpose of this creature? Why have we been forsaken? And extra neurotoxins, too. So if you see a murder hornet, I don't know, alert your local authorities, because you're going to need some firepower. You are going to need some firepower. How did they get here is my question. Why are people bringing the murder hornets to the U.S.? Murder hornets don't belong here. Send them back to Japan, to Asia. And why does it, why they got so many monsters over there? Australia's full of monsters. That's that portion of the planet. Japan has murder hornets and, Godzilla. This is ridiculous. Let's see. I want to look up some more facts about these on Wikipedia before we go. We'll get some real quick. The Asian giant hornet. Oh, wow. There's a lot on these. Drones are some... Okay, so only the females have stingers. And I guess that, apparently, according to this, is a common with all bees. If they made honey, if they made, extra honey... Oh, my gosh, they eat praying mantises. This is the scariest creature of the insect world. Besides maybe the fire ant. Let's see, extermination methods. All right, this is what we need to know, folks. Beating. Hornets are crushed with wooden sticks with flat heads. Hornets do not counterattack when they are a bee hunting phase or the hive attack phase, but they aggressively guard a beehive once they kill the defenders and occupy it. The biggest expenditure in this method is time, as the process is inefficient. Okay, so you can beat them to death. You can poison their nests, bait traps, classic mass poisoning, trapping at hive entrances, protective screens. I don't know, folks. This might be the end of us. The murder hornet. And they kill bees. Our precious bees. We need more honey, folks. We need the pollination of the plants. The bees do that. What has an Asian giant hornet ever done? Let's see. The stinger of the Asian giant hornet is about 1/4 of an inch long and injects an especially potent venom that contains, like many bee and wasp venoms, a cytolytic peptide, specifically a mastoparan, that can damage tissue by stimulating phospholipase action. I don't know what these words even mean. That's how you know it's dangerous. The stinger of the Asian giant hornet is about... Okay, so this is giving me 2 different stinger lengths. It's about 4.5 millimeters longer than a traditional honeybee. So if you don't like getting stung by bees, wait till that. A single wasp can inject a lethal dose and can be lethal to people who are not allergic. This is insane. Since 2001, the yearly human death toll caused by stings of bees, wasps, and hornets in Japan has been ranging between 12 and 26. Oh, I can't do it. It's just become too dangerous of a place for me, I think. Giant murder hornets, anything that's called a murder hornet should be eliminated. That's my next project, the Murder Hornet Elimination Fund. I'm going to start a GoFundMe right after this. Stop the murder hornets. Some sort of battleware thing, protect the honeybees. I don't know what we're going to do, folks, but keep your beekeepers, keep your bees close, because they coming. They coming, my friends. Thanks for tuning in to the GSMC Pet Podcast, the hidden gem of the GSMC Podcast Network. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on the big ones. We're on the big boys, baby. We know what you want. We know what social media you want to frequent. We're there waiting for your beautiful comments. And if you're listening to us on Apple Music, give us a 5-star. Give me a shout-out. Give Taylor Cowan a shout-out. Be like, hey, Taylor Cowan, I learned so much about murder bees today. Thank you for protecting me and my family. And to that I say you're welcome. And thank you for tuning in again to the GSMC Pet Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We love you. We appreciate you. I like you more than a friend. Good night.
You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.